Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning for those that are now following us on my YouTube channel from the Americas. My today's guest is very popular and is becoming also even more popular on YouTube for the views she usually expresses and she shares with her audience on many topics of our society as a whole, as well as regarding foreign policy. She is a writer, a truth seeker, and a traveler. And I shared on the description of this live stream the links where you can actually start to follow her for those that don't know her. But I know that many here know and usually follow her work. And usually she has very interesting opinions, as well as I also will have shared the other social media accounts where you can follow her. I know that her recent book actually sold out on Amazon. I think that I'm not wrong about that. Your book was sold out on Amazon because yes, even yesterday I tried to access and to open the link, but it wasn't available. Oh, I'm not saying the truth.
I
Oh
will
no.
update you I will update you after the intro. Thank you.
Okay. But still, I actually tried to access on Amazon and I haven't seen the book. Actually,
Mhm.
it's a tremendous pleasure to have her with us today, ladies and gentlemen, from Truth Through the Eyes of Anya Kay. Good afternoon, Anya.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really, really appreciate and good afternoon.
So my first question and on first place, let me thank you for accepting to be with us today. As you know, a significant part of my audience is based on Portuguese-speaking countries. Not only, but a significant majority is based on countries like Portugal, Brazil, Angola, and Mozambique. And I always like to start my conversation with my foreign guests by asking them about the contacts they have with my country. So let me ask you, if is this the first time you visit Portugal, so to speak?
I was in Portugal. Let me actually think. How many years ago? I was only once in Portugal, in Lisbon, on a very short trip. I think about 4 or 5 nights. I only saw Lisbon. I haven't seen the coast, like the Algarve and all those cities that are popular for tourists to relax. And yes, I actually had some very good impressions and some, to be diplomatic, strange, weird impressions
Like,
from the trip. Hmm.
do you want to give us any example of that? Those bad
Yes.
impressions?
So, well, it wasn't really bad, but it was. I'm very energy sensitive, and I repeat this a lot because I believe everything is energy, really. And what I felt in Lisbon, I saw the magnificence that it used to have. It used to be such a powerful country in history. So I saw that like a kind of faded glory in a way. I saw the hospitality. I felt the hospitality of the people, very humble people, but very strong people, proud people, but not standoffish people, which is interesting mix. And then, of course, culture mix as well. A lot of people moving to Lisbon in the time, especially a lot from US. But what I saw, I have to tell you, really was very touching, like touching my heart, because a lot of places in the center of Lisbon, beautiful buildings that were completely empty, and the windows that were broken, and you could see there is not just from the real estate standpoint, fantastic location, but you could see there was this mix of history, poverty, trying to rebuild from this, looking into the future, but not quite resolving the past, if this makes sense.
Yes, it does. Because actually, that's a topic of discussion in Portuguese politics for years. Everyone knows that and everyone can see that. But I don't see anyone able to change this situation. And that's why people speak so much about the case of the buildings and the houses that actually are empty and should be inhabited by many people, but for some reason that many people don't know, they are not. So, and then it brings that kind of mix because we want to preserve the historical characteristics, but yet at the same time, we want to become modern. And I think that the changes that especially Lisbon and Porto have been facing over the last years actually are not the good options, because many people think that modernity is to open the city and make the city some kind of circus or some kind of merry-go-round for tourists. And I don't think that actually is the right solution to modernize a city. It's not because we have a lot of tourists and because Lisbon is very spoken in many media and any other magazines, advising people to come to Lisbon, that we become modern. That's not modernity. So actually, I think that we are facing some kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde here. Not only in Lisbon, but Porto is facing the same. Well, but at least there was some kind of signal that you have that it was positive about the city, some vibration.
No, but I'm sorry to tell you that what I believe from the outsider perspective is that your absolute strength is in your uniqueness, in your history, and in that charm. You know, it's not just the tiles, right? Portuguese tiles, but there is something very, very specific. Like when you look at it, you know, this is Portuguese. And if you can build on this, I mean, it's just fantastic. So I really hope that it will turn out well, because the potential is enormous, and location too. I mean,
and
it's
actually,
fantastic location for the country.
It is to live, especially not only because of the climate and the weather conditions, but because of everything, even the culture, tradition. We are the most ancient country in Europe with the fixed borders. So that gives stability. That is a huge step to it. On the contrary, Poland, for example, I always give this kind of example to my audience, is that Poland, along the history, has always been being hit by superpowers, not only from the Russia as an empire, but also from Lithuania, also from Prussia and Germany. So this doesn't give much stability. Poland has always been unstable concerning not only its borders, but its political situation. How do you look at this kind of comparison? For example, how can Poland today be ambitious in order to become a strong player here in the European Union, as well as in the foreign policy as well?
You know, I will address it. I will start this answer with something maybe you don't expect me to say, but I think it's important to say it, because I believe that there is such a thing like every country has like its karma and its soul, if this makes sense.
Yes.
It's like a spirit, like a being. And I know it sounds very esoteric to some people, but throughout the history and all those interactions with different nations, there is a soul of the country. And each country now is going through this traumatic experience of breaking free from those old patterns, behaviors. It's like a human. If you compare it to a human, just different type of people that represent the country. And I think Poland, if I look at Poland from that standpoint, and then we go into politics, I think because of what you just said, because of those events historically that took place, there is a strange mix in the spirit of a Polish person, which is there is enormous sense of pride, but at the same time is this very deeply rooted insecurity and fear, and not trusting. So to the point that you not only don't trust the outside, you don't trust the insiders, so you don't trust your own.
Yeah.
So you're always on this lookout, like they're gonna cheat, they're gonna steal, they're gonna take advantage of you. And a lot of, and I have to say it might not sound nice if someone Polish is watching, I know, because I am Polish, so even hearing this, it can be offensive, but I have to acknowledge the shadow sides, you know, too. Like there are the good sides and there's a shadow side. And the shadow side is that sometimes in order to survive through the history, tough times, people had to break their own moral conducts. So they had to do things that were against their values and the rules, whatever, to stay alive. And I feel that happened many times in history, like maybe to cheat or to steal or to lie or to be a spy, because if I report on this one, then maybe I save my children, or I don't know, I'm just trying to, because I feel things a lot, you know, and it's also historically based that this lingers through generations, okay? So now you have this mix of, there are other countries that absolutely know the strategic position that Poland has as a country. And they also know the psychological weaknesses, right? And also the financial weaknesses. So when you tap into this, how easy it is to manipulate, because if there is a deeply rooted insecurity of any human being, it's very easy, like, you know, the soft points. You're like, okay, so you have complex of the West. So you want to be like a, you know, Hollywood movie star. So we're gonna feed you with this. Now look at this, look at this. You wanna be like this, you wanna be like this, you wanna be like this. A lot of people bought into that, not everyone, a lot of people bought into that. Certain stereotype has been created, and this is in every country, it's not just Poland, but I can speak for Poland. And I think that's when we go back to who we are and we find strength in our uniqueness, then we appreciate the diversity and the uniqueness of another. And that we go from there. I don't know if I answer your question here really, but it's very loaded, you know, there's a lot of factors to it.
But for example, even Poland, when we look at the most recent Polish history, especially on the 20th century, it's not only the world wars and the periods between the two world wars and afterwards, it's also the 80s. The 80s, actually, Poland marked a huge step and a chapter in world history, because it started with Poland, the political changes in the country that started a lot of other events that sooner or later became responsible for the dissolution of the USSR, for example, and also the view towards communism. So, presently, if we look at Poland, we would never guess that Poland actually faced that kind of so deep changes in the country. And I think that I know Poland. I've been to Warsaw and to Krakow, and I usually have a partnership with the Faculty of Law from the University of Warsaw. So I know even the people, and they don't seem to be people affected by history. So how actually presently can you describe the Polish as a community, as a people? Because here for us in Portugal is really hard to guess and to understand what the Poles have been facing for over centuries. Because for us, everything was always stable. Even when we had the changes from monarchy to a republic, and then the coup d'etat in 1974, everything was also still stable. For us, it's quite hard to understand how a community and how a society like those in Poland actually faced all these historical events.
So this is the resilience of the nation, you know. It's a very resilient nation. In spite of it all, it remains. I mean, there was time in history when they were gone from the map completely. There was no Poland. We know that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to be honest with you. When I was growing up in Poland, and I was growing up during communism time, it was from the child perspective, it was the time that, you know, you hear a lot of things at the dinner tables. You hear a lot about politics, but you're still a child. So you're experiencing this in a different way. Then the roundtable negotiations, the freedom. I mean, okay, there was some freedom, but then there was another form of, now I understand it better. It's like another influence came over. Let's just say it mildly. was different era. And I was never really that, my father was very connected to Poland. He worked really hard, and he was very, live in the same city most of his life. And they moved there after the World War II ended, and they rebuilt it. And he never could, they could never really understand when I was such a free spirit and I really wanted to move out of Poland. I'm saying all of this for a reason, because I was like, no, this is not for me. I don't like this country. It's not my style. It's not my vibe, And I left, and I went to United States. I'm actually a perfect example of someone who, I wasn't crazy about America, but I kind of felt like, this is the better life, right? And it was for some time. It was, I have to say it was. I wouldn't say now because I'm not there anymore, clearly, but I left. And why I'm saying this as using myself as an example, because when I came back to Poland, personal reasons, family reasons, I started to get a little bit more interested into politics and what's going on. And I had more understanding from the United States standpoint as well. And I saw the same forces of good and the same forces of evil just being represented in different countries. So for me, to answer your question about how the Polish community is right now, it's a very difficult answer. Because like in every country, in Poland, there is split. And there is even split within split. So there are people who are, let me put it this way, there are people who are able to express their disapproval with the level how the refugees are supported. There are people who disapprove that, but they will not express it. There are people who disapprove this and they don't blame Russia. And there are people who disapprove it and they blame Russia. And then you have people who actually understand. And there are some people who like, I don't care. I just want to live my life. So there is a lot of things going on. There are people who are totally for European Union. And there are people who say this is Eurokołchoz in Polish.
Okay, Eurosceptics.
So, yeah, it's all, imagine this is like one society, and then you throw on the top of it millions and millions of Ukrainians. And now deal with it. And how you juggle this, how you balance this.
Do you think there's also kind of a geographical division in Poland the same way as there is, for example, in Ukraine? For example, the more west you come, the more likelihood to become more open to join the EU, and the more east that you go. Does this phenomenon still also faces in Poland?
Well, I was just in Krakow actually, which is more southeast, you would say, but south of Poland, very pro-EU. I would say it's different reality for the people who live in big cities, and it's different for the farmer who is struggling big time right now, okay? Because they have been promised, well, first of all, because of the agriculture products coming from the east that they have to take in, and they have no more space in those storages for their own grain that soon is to be harvest time. And it's a lot of different realities, because those farmers, they have been promised by Polish government that they will have financial support because of this situation. However, after the elections, which is November. So this group of people, how they can, they are not into politics. A lot of average person who has normal life is caught in this very, very Western lifestyle. By the way, banks in Poland, credits, American way, everywhere. So majority of people, they have credits, high interest rates. They have no time to go into politics, to really analyze. They just read the headlines. Like when you have the article, they just read the headlines. They don't go deeper into it. And it takes time and it takes energy. And you know this, it takes energy to go through this stuff. And then you also have to have enough of your spiritual balance to process it all and to listen to your intuition to make sense out of it, because again, it can be twisted. A lot of people don't have time for this, and that's why it's such a one thing. I tell you what I think most people are on the same page with. They are done with this government, done. But the problem is no, well, you know how they always win, right? We know this, right? It's like there are ways how you win. When you're a loser, how you win, right? So the point here is that none of those people who are in Polish parliament right now, in my opinion, if they are watching, well, I just say it like I always say it, everyone goodbye. Everyone goodbye. None of them, because if any, they had enough time to make some changes, to oppose to certain laws and regulations, but they haven't. And now when you see, to me, one thing is enough. Do you support peace or you support war? End of story.
And what do you think that the Polish people tend to, at least in a majority, to support? The peace, at least in the Western way of looking at it, or peace as I think that any people with good common sense can see that is the right solution. For example, to stop supporting Ukraine, in not only regarding the warfare of Ukraine, but also in economic terms. What do you think actually the majority of the Polish people tends to support?
You know, I think it's coming to the yeah, it's coming to the point right now when that number of refugees that they allow to enter Poland, it's like boomerang effect right now, because it was already happening a while ago, but now people are at this point when they are up to here with all of this, and they really, really don't care anymore. They just want to have more life of safety and security on every level, not just, you know, physically as well, I'm talking, because it's really getting dangerous. Financially as well. And there is this sense of the sense of not having stability, and they don't see the future the way that things are going. So I would say this, that there is still enormous percentage of Polish people that absolutely, I would use the light word, don't like Russia. And they blame Russia for it. Yes, I have to say there are. But at this moment, I feel like they are coming to some senses, because they are questioning, for example, the Ministry of National Defense in Poland and certain actions that they are taking, like why they tell us about buying another tank or this or that or submarine or plane, while we have some, I repeat this because that's just an example. This was a big thing in Poland, this mysterious rocket that was found. By the way, it was in the forest from like last year, but officially they announced it in April. So like from December, the old Soviet rocket is laying down in the forest. They found it officially in April, but probably they know about it from December, but they are not letting the citizens know that there is a rocket in the middle of the forest. So the whole thing is like the Minister of National Defense should be fired, but he's not. So why I'm telling you the story is because people are like, something is just not right. Yeah. Like you want to protect, you buy this, you buy that, which is billions and billions of dollars that generation after generation will have to pay back. So they put the country in this, And now they are like war, 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 because again, we know this like everywhere, is the media. So programming, threats from the east, danger, alarm, all the time, fight and flight, brain. But really, there is no danger. So more and more people, I believe, are coming to the senses, and they are wise, and they are very, very smart, and they're like, no, I'm not buying this. This is another game, and this is like, hey, election time is coming. They're gonna manipulate us. Now they are doing all this circus before the election, and the same all over again. So I don't think they are for war.
It's not very different from there, here, because we have our prime minister that actually some months ago, more or less less than a year ago, he went to Kiev, and he said that Portugal was about to donate 250 million euros for the budget of Ukraine. And then a reporter asked him, okay, so on what will this money be used by Ukraine? And he said, I don't know, we don't care, we just want to give them the money and they will know better than us. This happened with our prime ministers. So I don't think that something like this could be said by any Polish politician, and especially after what you're telling me, because how would the public react to such a statement? Just give them the money, we don't care, we don't want to know.
Well, but you see, Poland has a different justification for this. Because it's evil Russia. It's evil Russia. Okay, anything you just end to protect yourself from Putin.
So this is a perspective more of we need to topple Putin, and not much as, for example, we really need to support Ukraine and Europe. So they are only seeking a way to make Russia to lose any kind of conflict that they start.
When the argument of supporting Ukraine is no longer working because people are struggling in their own personal lives, you use the argument, but Russia is, listen, come on, it's Russia, hey, you're gonna, really, you have to, you have to.
Just because.
So, yeah, it's always like, because Ukraine argument might not be working anymore. It's overdone, right? Like it's already not working. It doesn't have any effect. So you're gonna use, because there is a threat, and you have this narrative going on and on and on and on and on. And like I said, a lot of people don't have time. When you don't listen to the full speech of the person, you just have few words cut out that are manipulated, like you know how they do it.
Yeah.
And they just present you those few words and they tell you, he said this, he said that. That's how majority of people read any news or any information. And it stays.
But do they at least care about the will of the people from the Donbass, from Zaporozhye, from Kherson? If a huge majority wants to be a part of Russia, does that make any kind of difference to the understanding of the Polish citizen or not? They just think about, okay, it's Putin, he's our boogeyman, and we need to defeat him. It's just this. They don't actually care if the people living in the Donbass, they want to join and to be a part of Russia.
I cannot answer for this. I don't know. I cannot answer. I don't know. I cannot really answer, because there is also a lot of people who really don't go that deep. Like, even this subject is not on their list of conversations or their interest. All they care, I'm serious, all they care is they just pay the bills and how they're going to pay the next bill. So you see, the problem is that even if you don't care, they're still going to tax you. They will raise the taxes, and those taxes will still go on whatever they want them to go. You see? Yeah. That's the whole point. Like now, the next year, I didn't say it on my channel, but I just read this, 2024, the small, I always have problem pronouncing this word in English, entrepreneur, I hope I pronounce it right. They will have the highest in the history, like minimum pay to continue with their business. So they are raising taxes everywhere possible. Everywhere.
Yeah.
So even if they don't support something, by paying those taxes, they still kind of do.
Isn't this the kind of policy actually that's being followed presently, that was also a subject of criticism, harsh criticism back in the 70s and the 80s, when people usually accused the Polish government and many other governments from being too socialist?
Yeah, but that's my whole point. It's like, at this moment, when you look at the Polish government, after all those financial decisions that they took, I haven't reported on this yet, but I have to sit down and bring those numbers to people. Never in the history of Poland was run by such a high deficit like it is right now. Never ever before in history. Never Polish government had so many, I actually mentioned this, so many ministers and vice ministers in the government. So the number of people, you surround yourself by this, like, right? Then you pay them on the side, and you just stay quiet and keep on going. So that's what's going on. And now the question is what they will do to continue with this, how far they will go, because this is the breaking point right now. A lot of people are faced with those polls. You have to say who you will be voting for. And actually, I know it sounds crazy, but it's not good to say, in my opinion, that you will be voting against this party, because if they see the true disagreement, they can pull some really major shenanigans out. And if they think, okay, we still have a hand on this, like we still control it, they lose their sense of, or they lost the sense of reality. But they're gonna, this is how you are smart. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna vote for you. I'm gonna vote for you, right? And then you just do something else. Because if you say, no way, Jose, I'm not gonna vote for you, then they are like, okay, from 30-some%, it's like 2017. So it's like major event is coming. Here we are.
Indeed.
So I know it sounds crazy maybe, but it's a very psychological game right now,
No, not really. It doesn't seem crazy. I mean, it's crazy, but it doesn't seem so unrealistic, because even here in Portugal, Spain, and many other countries here from Western Europe, we see exactly the same phenomenon. It only changes the culture, the language, and the place where it is taking place. But it actually goes the same way as you have described it. And for example, I remember that when I grew up, we were kind of indoctrinated, not only in schools, but also in families, to look at the Soviet Union, as well as for Eastern Europe, as underdeveloped people. We grew up with that idea. It's really, really hard, even today, to change that kind of view, not only from Poland, but also from Russia. That's why we have, after the Polish, the second biggest, the second people who hates the most the Russians are the Portuguese. And if you ask me, why is that? We don't have any particular reason. We were always friends of Russia. We never fought Russia, never. But because of this indoctrination from all over the years, and even from the era of the dictatorship that ended in 1974, communism actually was seen as a threat, as a huge threat. And after the revolution, we looked at those countries from Eastern Europe, and there was also the same talk, always the same talk, which was they are underdeveloped people, they are very poor, they live in bad conditions, in harsh conditions. Like if Polish, Romanians, Hungarians, the Ukrainians, Belarusians, if all of them, they were underdeveloped people. I grew up with that idea. So it's really hard presently to share here with the Portuguese audience that actually the Soviet Union was not that. The Polish are not that kind of people that we were indoctrinated to believe that they were. It's actually, the Polish people presently are becoming more and better, because people finally start to interact with the Polish, and they see, well, wait, actually they are very educated people. They are very educated people. They are very polite. They are very humble. They are very intelligent. So I don't know why we grew up with this kind of idea, but we saw them as Eastern Europe actually is a threat to our way of living. And now I think that when we look at Western Europe, we think I find it quite the opposite. Now we are a threat to Eastern Europe, to the quality of life. For example, I know Moscow. I've been to Moscow several times, as well as other Russian cities, and you have divided all your life between Poland, United States, and also Russia. I follow you, and I see that you are a lot of times in Russia. How can you make the comparisons between these three places over the years? You already told me how it was when you were a child, at least 1970s, 1980s. But how is it today? What differences do you think? Do you find? Do you think that Moscow actually is kind of becoming bankrupt soon? The Russian people are struggling. What's your opinion on that?
So first, let me just clarify. I have not been in Russia a lot. I actually, well, from the traveler perspective, probably a lot, but I came here first time last year in December because I really wanted to see with my own eyes how this country is. That was my intention. And I still had this inside of me, this sense of, you know, I've been programmed too, okay? I've been programmed too. I've been forced at school. Forced, yes, because you cannot refuse. You cannot say, no, I will not study Russian, right? In your primary school. So I was not crazy about Russia, but when the situation in Ukraine has started, well, it started much, much earlier, now I know, but I'm talking about February 2022. I just didn't make sense to me, all of this, what they were reporting. So I started to research, and, you know, one thing after another led me to really, this image was changing, like maybe not like this, but like slowly was changing. And I said, you know what, I want to go, I want to see myself how it is. And I want to see the people, how they are. I want to feel the country, I want to feel the energy. And like I say, vibes don't lie, energy doesn't lie, and you know. So it's not really like I lived here. I keep on coming, and who knows what the future holds. But for now, I am here for some time. We see how long. I've lived in US for many years, 17 years actually. And what I say is this. First, I want to actually tell you, I'm very surprised. I didn't know that Portugal was also programmed the way to have this kind of approach to Russia, because when you look at this, how this evil works, I mean, I just call it as it is. So you have the country that is geographically the closest to Russia, that had some definitely historical, you know, events going on there, like touching each other, not in a nice way often. And then you have the country that is completely like the furthest in Europe, and is still thinking the same, which makes completely no sense. I mean, and it worked. Like, if people in Portugal think like this, look how effective that was.
Indeed.
The brainwash.
Indeed. And when you look, for example, when you ask many people about their opinion about the Russians, they will always compare Russia with the Soviet Union, but on a dark perspective, that they were kind of indoctrinated for all over the years. And because they never saw and they never had access to something different, to a different opinion, to a different image, that's why it's so hard to change their minds. So it's kind of, if you're a Catholic and you believe in Catholicism since you were born until you're aged 40 or 50, how can someone challenge you and tell you, well, this doesn't exist, this is only a fairy tale? That person is not ready and available to trust your opinion about that and to see the facts, to see the evidence, you know. So, and it's always this, almost the same thing here, the same phenomenon here. People are always suspicious about the Russians, and then when you ask why, they'll say, well, the communists, wait a minute, but what about the communists? What's the problem? They're the opposition. Even some weeks ago, we had an important, a very popular journalist here in Portugal that lived in Russia for 38 years. And he is a pundit, and he's always also the kind of representative of the narrative against Russia. And he said that Putin belongs to the far left. And when you hear this, you can't avoid, you can't help but get shocked with this kind of narratives that are actually being sold to the Portuguese people. How is it possible? For someone who was there for 38 years, he saw the dissolution of the Soviet Union. He watched and witnessed also the Boris Yeltsin, then Putin, then Medvedev, then Putin. How is it possible to share this idea to the people, to share hate speech? So it's Portugal, like you said, it's the farthest point of Europe from Western Europe, yet you still have this kind of narrative and people hating Russia, and they just don't know why they hate Russia. Because we watch the news, but what's on the news? Have you at least asked why, and if that makes sense? No, but if it comes on the news, well, it has to be true. That's the way of thinking.
But here is the question. So you never know where Soros money goes, as far as the journalist. That's one. Yeah, you know, in Poland there is lots of Soros money in many spots. I'm not gonna say names, but those who know. But then another thing, I think the crucial point here is this. In my opinion, which is maybe for many people the hardest way if they don't open their hearts, ultimately we have like two planets going on, like two Earths. They talk about it, and truly is. One Earth is like we see what's going on, another Earth is like we live in the box, inside this box. Ultimately, the only way to solve this, in my opinion, is either you have Holy Spirit comes through you and heals you from this, and you just see it as it is, or you have to meet the people of the country in person. You have to travel, you have to, or have some other interactions with several different interactions, and then you establish your own opinion about Russian people, because you will be like, no, but I met this one and I met this one and they were nice to me, even though my government is so, I don't want to say bad words against them, but they are nice people and they are kind, and then they are changing their opinion from the real life experience. So that's why they don't want people to share those things or unite or to travel. You can still travel, you know, it's just more hassle, but you can still travel.
Indeed. And it was also quite a surprise to me the first time I went to Russia, not because I was back then or still demonizing Russia, I wasn't, but it was a bigger surprise because it actually went way beyond what I could expect to be the most positive scenario. What was your biggest surprise in Russia so far?
I tell you what, truly, the energy here.
What do you feel? What kind of energy?
I will speak for Moscow because I've been only in two big cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg, and actually soon I will be going a little bit outside of Moscow to Russian countryside, which I'm really looking forward to because I love nature and to be, you know, in quiet space, very small town. My feeling in winter was different, and my feeling now is different as far as observing people, seeing more behaviors, more because more people now on the streets. It's summer, it's warmer. The energy here, there's something very sacred, very powerful in Moscow. There are areas you literally feel, it truly is, it's like an electric field, it's like the vibration, it's incredible energy. You know, I'm not an Orthodox person. For some reason, I feel some kind of connection to certain aspects of that because of that energy. So something connects me with it. But I feel that is like lingering string that unites those people, because even if they try to, how you say this correctly in English, like they try to slide away, like they go away from it, a little bit more westernized Russians, there is still this in their soul. It's very, my thing, the biggest thing here is this energy, and this is like a soul of the country. And when you really meet people and you talk to them and you see that they are deep, okay, there are different people too, there are shallow people like everywhere, but majority, you feel this is like deep soul.
Indeed.
Deep, they feel deeply. And that to me, it's because I believe that Polish people actually are very much the same. And this is the tragedy of it all, because they divide people in such a way that they turn brother against brother. Like now, I mean, look at Ukraine. So that was really, I wouldn't say maybe the most surprising, but the kindness, when you combine kindness and strength, is beautiful, because they have big hearts, but yet they are strong.
And we are speaking of the major city in Russia. Usually, I believe that usually we find the difference between these urban capitals and then the countryside of each country. And usually we tend to see people so open and so humble and with such a big heart, like you have mentioned, usually more on the countryside or outside the bigger cities. Yet in Moscow, I have found exactly the same as you did, because I see people living in a huge city. Moscow is unbelievably huge, and all that vibration, people looking and expecting to live, to take the best of their lives there in Moscow. And actually, you have that chance, yet they still remain humble, normal people with the foot on the ground. And I think that's quite interesting to watch and to evaluate. You said that you went there for the first time on December, right? It was winter, and you probably saw a lot of people on the streets walking, regardless of the weather and how cold it was. I also had this chance to see this, which actually I don't think it happens in the major European cities. For example, I'm in Lisbon, and for us to have 3 positive degrees, for us, that's way too cold. You see? And people say,
no, but I have to tell you, this maybe sounds strange, because I think Moscow is so beautiful now, I can tell, in 2 seasons, but there is something incredibly special about winter. It's very mystical. It's like you're in another reality. It's like like you're in another dimension. I'm telling you, it's so different in winter. It's almost like you protected, I don't know, by Mother Russia, but you protected like in this cocoon. It's cold, it's freezing, you're like so over it. But something is so special in it. But something else I want to add to this. Not everything is like, okay, I see things also that maybe I want to say it, because I also see that it's not all so perfect, like people think. It's not all so perfect. That I can see there are people who are struggling too. I can see there are some homeless people, small number I saw, but I see, right? In winter, I haven't seen them. I was told actually that they have been in some areas that government or the mayor of the city provides them shelter. I don't know. That's what I had some comments from my viewers. But what I've noticed also, and is this, there is still, I see like there's a lot in Moscow, a lot of people who are in a way this kind of like a Western lifestyle. So like work, go to metro, go to work, finish, smoke, a lot of smoking, smoke. So stress, right? Because I observe this. So I see that. So you see like they are in their own like zone going on their lives, like very much like if it's New York or if it's Moscow, the same kind of thing. However, what I've noticed, I'm generalizing, is different. When I have interaction with someone like this, I connect on a deep level. So you can break through this. Like this is like their work mode, but the soul is there. So you can find that connection there. In the West lately, well, for me, I think that was my biggest challenge with United States, that I was trying to find something deeper for a very long time. And I didn't know if I was changing the cities, I was changing the jobs, and, and I think they talk about those values, but, and there is a lot of people who are very spiritual, but there is also a danger of this new age movement that it can be also, it's not necessarily making you a better person. I don't know if this makes sense. It's a lot of manipulation in this, a lot of those like self-help subjects. A lot of people are struggling with depression. And now this whole industry that have been created in the United States, and I've been into this stuff for a very long time there, because, you have Tony Robbins, I went to those seminars, Walk on Fire, done those things. So this whole coaching industry, like how you coach you out of your troubles, and there is another level of addiction to it. So people spend tons of money to do it, and go another one, another teacher, another this, and then they come to this point when they don't know what to do anymore. And I think I don't know how it is here. I know there's a lot of people also who are interested in those type of things, but I feel like they have a very different foundation here. I just sense it. Like they have, because they still have the family, they still have some grounding, right?
The values of the family and the value itself that the family has for the community, not only for the person herself, but also for the community, and how it allows you to look at the society from a different perspective, from the perspective that you share the society and the world with others. You're not the center of the world. I think this is quite a difference, at least in the approach that each people, not only from the West, but from Russia, that you actually find. But did you see a significant part of Russians struggling to have food on the table, to work, to find work, unemployment, something like that? How would you describe the current situation in Moscow, at least considering any kind of economic activity there?
It's very hard for someone like me who has some quite narrow perspective to answer this, right? But I can just speak from my experience, right? Because I'm not like a person who goes from door to door and checks the household situation, so I cannot speak for everyone. But what I have heard from people that I came across, because I tend to ask questions a lot, if I feel like it's a good person to have conversation with, because, you have to be respectful. I've noticed something that the key thing for me is I feel safe. I feel safe here. No matter where I go, no matter what time of the day, I feel I'm safe. I see how the city, this particular city, is being taken care of as far as clean. Of course, you find once in a while some trash there, but this is like the basic. So I feel safe. Overall, it's clean. I see how it's organized. Yes, I took metro a few times. I'm so proud of myself. I'm figuring out. So I also see how this is working. I see people on metro. I see how they are interacting with one another. If they respect someone who is walking in, coming out, exiting, all those things, because this is how the society is functioning, right? So I see that. I see respect. Well, I was here for Women's Day, so imagine flowers for women. I see that. So they value children, they value women. I see couples, I see how couples are. Okay, I know that's not, probably there are couples who are cheating one on another. That's not my, right? But overall, and I say that I see people who who have lots of money, or it looks like they have, who knows? And I see people who are very modest, and somehow all of this is just functioning. I know that it's not easy for everyone, and I know that many people had some challenges, but I also know that families who have children, what I've been told, might be wrong, but people told me who have children, Russian people living in Moscow, they have some support from the government for the schooling. They don't pay for, like, for example, for parking when they go to work. There are some benefits that come with this. So the government helps them. I don't know exactly what part of government it is, but you know, they like reduce certain bills from their life, so it makes it easier. And I see also another thing, that it's so incredible because they really love art and culture. So of course, in winter, you see lots and lots of people in those museums because it's so cold. Now I don't really want to go because it's so beautiful outside, but I have to go eventually. The museums are full of people, and it's not like they just go and like, it's another painting. No, they actually stop at the front of the painting and they contemplate. And they look into, and they feel it. I went to few shows, like ballet or, you know, musical. Anna Karenina, actually incredible in Moscow. I recommend anyone, if you're ever in Moscow and they still play Anna Karenina, you gotta go. I don't care if you don't understand Russian, you will feel it from the music, from the costume, from the everything, you will feel it. So they feel everything, and they bring the whole families. So that part of culture, it doesn't matter, you know, it looks like rich, poor, middle class, people go. So I really don't know how to answer this, but I think there are some things when I look at it that are actually working well. And I know there are definitely some struggles, but, and you know, it's just Moscow, right? So Russia is a huge country, and all I've seen is really very small portion of it, but that's my perception so far.
Moscow is a country in itself, so huge.
Yeah.
Even you mentioned metro stations. I believe presently there are 240 metro stations, so the network is almost endless. That network, and they have great transportation connections. So it's a huge city, yet they have great connections to connect the city everywhere, almost everywhere. And you mentioned the matter of flowers. I don't know if you have noticed this yet, but actually Russians love to give flowers. They love to buy flowers.
Yes.
Flower shops everywhere. Cvet magazine, you see them everywhere. I just actually love this. And even when you go to the metro stations, you see old ladies selling flowers as well. And this is quite of, they used to do this, even to offer flowers to men. I think this was quite amusing to see this, because it also shows how people actually feel and how people actually are, because they are tender. But they just don't need to express it in words or in a dramatic way, like, for example, many Latin people usually expect them to express. So that's why I always suggest them, please go to Moscow. Please go to any other Russian cities. You will find different Russias. There's not one Russia. There are a lot of Russias. And at the same time, there was some in the audience. Go.
I want to say one more thing. Sorry to interrupt you before I forget, because you just reminded me about the metro. And I was going there actually with my thoughts, that it's not just the museums, the art is everywhere. When you walk on the streets, I never seen such a thing. You actually have on certain streets, I think it's Tverskaya area, you have paintings on the buildings, like part of the building. It's a painting on the facade, which looks like almost like you're in some incredible museum. That's that size of a painting. And then you go, or even you just want to take metro, or you go under the ground to take metro, and you have people, so talented, incredible artists performing. Like, you just can't believe that this person is there playing saxophone or guitar or whatever is the instrument. They are incredibly talented. Indeed. So this art is everywhere. I just wanted to say, because, you know, it's like you cannot escape it, and it's so important for your soul.
Yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. And I must also add, people, that I'm not expecting Anya to give here some kind of scientific evidence or some kind of study regarding the population or the society of Russia. We really want you
I
want you
can't.
to share your through the eyes of Anya. We want to know how
True.
your eyes observe the phenomenon. I think that's the main goal of this conversation we have here. And also concerning the same topic, have you noticed any kind of political activity, especially concerning the any kind of opposition party, something that you think, well, this wasn't so good to watch or to know? Do you think there's any kind of censorship? Because I've always said this to I must tell you this. I've always said to my audience, each time I go to Moscow, I tend to love even more the city, because when I turn on the news, I actually can watch news bringing us content about Western media, about Western newspapers, and they speak about it openly. They have discussions. They have actually really good pluralistic debates. And on the streets, I have never seen any kind of cult of personality regarding any kind of politicians, even Vladimir Putin. You don't see any kind of 2, 3, or 4 biographies speaking of Putin or Boris Yeltsin, so on and so forth. So what you see is, of course, some parts of Russia that actually still pay some kind of tribute to Vladimir Lenin and some other Russian leaders. But you don't see present politicians be worshipped through the machine of the state government or through any kind of bookshops. I don't know if you have the same idea as I do, but I haven't noticed this.
But you see, here I don't really, I don't know how to talk about it, because I will not be honest if I will say how things are. I have a very narrow perspective of this. I don't know enough. All I know, there are few channels, some of which I understand a big part of Russian, but not that well. So I cannot say exactly what kind of conversations they are having. I have a sense of it. Then I have RT, which is, and I don't really watch TV at all, if once in a while, RT in English, but then again, you have art. So it's a certain way. And I cannot say how things are, because I really don't have such a spectrum of awareness or knowledge. If there is such a opposition, or I cannot speak to it really, because I will have to be deeper into it. And at this moment where I am, I'm really a person who is in Moscow and is just happy to be able to explore the city, and to try different areas, different places, meet certain people and interact and just be here, have great food. By the way, great food, everyone. So very fresh, no toxins, like you eat, and it's so good. So all of this, no, it's important, because in US, people might argue, but I would say it's not so healthy.
No, no, not at all. You feel the tension, you feel the hostility. Not only in the US, I've of course experienced it not only in the US, but also in Europe, my country as well. It's no exception, sadly. So that's why they tend to force people to believe in one perspective and not share some kind of pluralistic views, in order to allow people to start thinking by themselves. And that's how you develop bigotry towards some kind of people or some kind of nationality or citizenship. I think that's actually one of the problems. But I always tell people, please go to Moscow or you go to any other Russian city, and you will find a lot of people open and ready to speak with you about many kind of topics, unless you try to offend them. If you start with that kind of prejudiced ideas about Russia and about politics, of course, no one will take it well. But usually they accept this kind of activity. I was asking you this because one of my viewers was actually suggesting me to ask you, what do you think about Navalny, Alexei Navalny? Because here there is some kind of myth that Alexei Navalny would be able to win any kind of elections in Russia. There's a myth here. How do you look at him?
No, no, I don't know this, how Russian citizens really think. but from my personal opinion, I would say no.
Exactly.
It's just me. That's just me.
Exactly. I share your opinion as well. So, but this viewer was asking me this. And by the way, also another viewer is asking, telling me to ask you if have you been to Hermitage in Saint Petersburg?
Yes, actually, one of my, I don't know how I did this, to be honest, but when I was here in winter, every single day I was creating a video, and it was so cold sometimes, like even wearing the gloves, holding the phone, it was too much. Even with all of this, I went to Hermitage. So there is a video on my channel, you can see from the outside and from the inside, because what's amazing, you can actually record inside as well. So I was making clips. I showed people a lot. I don't have long videos, but I showed people art and different places. Lately, it's more like just one area. But before I was putting clips together. So I've been to Hermitage, and I actually have to tell you, Hermitage is incredible, it's impressive, but it's not my favorite place as far as museum in Russia.
Which was
it's not my number one museum. No, if we talk St. Petersburg, I loved Fabergé Museum. It's actually, I know it sounds strange to many people. I prefer Fabergé for some reason. I love Fabergé Museum. And then in Moscow, I would say the Pushkin State Gallery is my favorite. Yeah. So far, right? I've seen a lot, but not, of course, not all. And after that is Tretiakov Museum, the original.
You will easily get lost in so many museums to find the top 3, top 5. You have a lot of that, and I know it's quite hard. And we already passed 1 hour of this conversation. Actually, I'm enjoying it a lot, and my viewers as well. And I must ask you, what does actually a truth seeker do in order to find truth?
Go within. You go within. It sounds strange, huh? Okay. Because all the answers really are within. I think that the main, when we are so disconnected, and that's what happened to humans, we get so disconnected from the truth, from who we are, from that part of us that is always connected to God. And that is, everything is clear. You have this enormous gift, each one of us, right? We have it. We have intuition. And I think a lot of people don't give enough credit to that. And that intuition, that inner sense, it's a direct, in my opinion, direct communication with something higher and something more of absolute knowing, clarity, light, beauty, love, truth. And then whatever it comes to you, whatever information comes to you, you have this filter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a journey, especially in the last few years. It's exhausting. It's exhausting because the people you saw a certain way, this one is gone, this one's gone, this one's gone. You know, even the things you used to value, your role models or someone who inspired you, you're like, I can't believe even this one. So the truth is, I think that in a one sentence, truth is simple. Truth is not complicated.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah. So what one does, it resonates or it doesn't. And if every media reports the same, depending on the subject. I mean, if it's raining, that's a different story, but I'm not talking about weather. Weather also is questionable. Everything is questionable.
If everyone tells you that's raining, at least go and look at the window.
Yes, exactly. What's raining really, right? What's coming down?
Yeah, indeed, that works. So I believe that this idea works as an advice for our viewers as well. Look deep
I
inside.
hope so. Yes, go within.
Yaranya, thank you very much
Thank you.
for being with me and with us today.
Obrigado, obrigado.
Oh. Пожалуйста, I can only say in Russian, I can't say in Polish, but actually your accent was...
Dziękuję. Obrigado and obrigada, I know. And yes, so
Wow,
that I can tell.
Oh, thanks God. Thank you very much for being here with us today once again, and I hope to soon to see you here participating again. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I did, and
Thank
for
you.
what I can read my audience as well. Please don't leave. I'm just going to say goodbye to my viewers and also tell them tomorrow that we will have another update on the Ukrainian counteroffensive actually being developed against the Russian positions, not only in Zaporozhye, but also in any other areas. So once again, thank you everyone for being here with us today, this afternoon, this morning, and I hope to see you soon here again on this channel. Have a good day.